In today's show, we're going to learn to use PowerApps to import Excel to a SharePoint list or other data sources. So the idea here is that we're going to upload a file in our PowerApp, pass it over to Power Automate Flow. It's going to parse it out for its tables and then dynamically push that to our data source. Should be fun. Should be fast. But first, here's our intro. Hi, my name is Shane Young with PowerApps 911. Those guys. And today, we're going to learn how to use PowerApps to upload an Excel file straight into a SharePoint list. So we've done uploading files in general before, right? But now what we want to do is let a user attach an Excel file into our PowerApp. And then once they've attached it, we're going to take it, we're going to pull out the columns, the tables, and we're going to use that to populate a SharePoint or other data source. Doesn't really matter at that point. And it's all with the magic of Power Automate. So we're going to combine a couple of concepts of videos we've done before to build a pretty cool little business solution. Should be fun. So let's switch over to my desktop and take a look. Okay, so what we've got here is just a simple Power App where we're going to upload an Excel file. So we're just going to hit the import. This is using our technique for uploading files in general. We're going to browse here. I want this one called a different name. We're going to say open. And so then what this is doing is this is passing this over to our dear friend Power Automate Flow. Power Automate Flow is interrogating the Excel file for the tables. And then once it finds the tables, it's then saying, hey, for every record in that table, create a SharePoint item, bingo, bango. It then returns. We do a refresh of the data source, and you can see that the data was successfully loaded in here. Now, from the Excel perspective, it's nothing too fancy. All the Excel file has done is it's got a table that is important. The data has to be in a table. And so you can see my table's name, sales history right here. And so when you do this, right, the data that comes in has to be in a table, and you're going to want the table to be in a predefined format. So we can't be dynamic. We can't let them upload just any table and we'll figure out what the columns are and figure out where they go. We're going to kind of need a repeatable pattern from our users that are doing this. But as long as they're giving us the same table of data, we can parse it and do what we need to it. So how do we do that? Well, let's look over here first at the flow. So we'll say edit. Over in our flow, our trigger is first going to be just a regular PowerApps trigger. Nothing fancy there, pretty straightforward. We're then going to do a create a file. And so this is our standard way of uploading a file from PowerApps to a SharePoint document library or OneDrive, wherever you want to put the file. And so if you've never done that before, you'll need to know how that works. So check out the video up above. We'll show you kind of in passing, but we're not going to get into the details of this whole base 64 to binary and the JSON and all that. But so what this does is this creates the file in SharePoint. Once we've created the file in SharePoint, because we have to create the file before we can use the file, then we're going to use the Excel on our Excel for Business action, I forget whatever those are called, and we're going to get the tables from the file that we just created. Now, this isn't going to work if you're building it exactly as we go, but we'll build this by hand in a second so you can see how we would actually go through this. But this is how the working one works. So we get the tables of the file we just uploaded. And then we're going to go down here and say, hey, I need you to list the rows present from that file and from the first table. So I'm counting on the Excel file only having one table. If you had more than one table, you'd have to add a bunch of tricky logic. We're not going to cover that in the video. I'm assuming they're uploading one Excel file with one table with a predetermined set of columns, because that's about the only way you're going to do this successfully. Now, when you list rows and presents in a table, make sure you expand show advanced options. If you're using dates at all, by default, they're going to come out as serial dates, which is like the number of ticks since like December 31st, 1999 or 1899, I don't know, a long, long time ago, 1899, I think. And you don't want that most likely. So what you probably want is to switch this to ISO 8601 format. Doing this will save yourself a lot of trouble there. So make sure you've expanded this and make this change. So then now that we've got all the rows present, then we're going to loop through the list of tables. And we're going to make sure that none of the fields are blank. Flow gets really grumpy if any of the fields are blank. So I just did this simple little, and name is not equal to nothing, amount not equal to nothing, date not equal to nothing, email, etc. So, and I did this because in my original data set, I actually had a blank row and I kept erroring. I was like, nah. So I did that. There's probably a more elegant way to do it, but that worked for me. Then we're going to use the simple create an item action here. And so here we're going to create that in that sales history SharePoint list, right? Where's sales history at? Right here, this lovely little list. And so this one, as you can see, just has those symbols. This is the title column renamed. This is a currency column, a date column, and another text column. No big deal there. And then once we've built all that, right, we're just going to fill in the blanks. Boom. Now then down here underneath this, then what I want to do is I want to purge the file. I didn't want to keep the Excel file. We're just importing it and deleting it. But if you've ever tried to use the SharePoint delete file on something you've just operated against, you probably know that you end up running into locks. And so what I found was that there was someone, this blog post right here, clever workarounds. I'll put a link to this down in the description. But so this one, it shows you how to use the API to delete. And the beauty of this is down here, we're going to hit the API to delete the file, and we're just dynamically getting the item ID from the create file step above. And we just do this prefer bypass shared lock. Boom. It doesn't give you any of those error messages about the file is locked or anything. And then we're going to respond to our Power App. And the reason we're going to do this is because I want the Power App to wait on this to finish. Because if we go look at our Power App code, where we're doing all this is the add file of our attachment control. So we're setting a variable to true. That causes our little spinner to load. We're stripping down the file that is uploaded to get its raw base64. That's these two steps. Remember, that's in that other video I linked to a minute ago. And then we're running this flow to just say, hey, flow, upload the file name and the base64 we just did. Once again, that's also in that previous video. We reset the attachment control. And then we're using a refresh here. If you've watched my video, it says don't ever use refresh. This is one of those cases where you have to use refresh. The reason for that is because, unfortunately, right, there's no way for PowerApps doesn't know that the flow is changing the SharePoint list, but I need the new SharePoint list files to show up here in my PowerApp, so I have to manually do a refresh. This is one of the very few occasions I permit using review or refreshes, and then we turn off the spinner variable. That is all it takes to do this, right? So simple. And I apologize, my voice is really, it feels terrible right now. Okay, but so now that we've seen that, right, this is just a simple data table. This is just a little count rows, and it's going to delegation row because count rows is not delegable. But I just put that there so that way you guys could see that, if I click this again and we upload that same file, it'll work again. And the reason it works again is because I delete the file when I'm done with it. So I'm not having any conflicts there between the same file being done. And look at that. When it's done, it refreshes. And now we've got 10 items where we just had 5 because there's 5 rows in there. We're loading them 5 at a time. Cool? Cool. Okay. So with all that said, I want to talk a little bit more. And I guess before we do this, I also want to remind you guys, if you go out to training.powerapps911.com and sign up for the YouTube library, you can download this working app and this working flow, right? So if all this is too crazy, you don't want to have to go write what we're about to talk through, then please just go download it. But I want to talk about this because it is a little trickier. These two steps are a little weird because they're dynamic. So let's go over here. Let's just create another flow. We're going to have to make it that complicated. We can make it a much more simple flow. But we will say create. We'll just do an instant flow, PowerApps, create. And so when we do the create file, right, it is create file SharePoint. There you go. And so then we just, this is easy peasy. Go find the site you want to upload it to. What folder do you want to upload it to? Notice that my documents folder is called shared documents. In some places, documents and others. It's real weird. But here it's called shared documents. Then what file name do I want to give it? And so we just said ask in PowerApps. And then what file content do we want to give it? And so we're going to say create file name. Nope. We're going to say see more, ask in PowerApps again. But then we have to delete this out. And then we have to use the whole base64 to binary, parentheses, and paste this in, right? Oh, but not that one. I did the wrong one. It's going too fast. Try again. Paste in file content. Say okay. And I'll hover there for a second so you can see what it looks like. But there you go. That's that. That's covered in the other video. Not getting into the mechanics there. Now, what you want to do is you want to be able to find the tables. You need to be able to dynamically find the table from the Excel file. So we're going to do new step. We're going to search for Excel Online Business, and then we're going to say get tables because we're going to need the table name. And in theory, they could name the table differently. If you can force them to always name it the same, you don't have to do this step. Great. Now for the location, we're going to manually go choose that SharePoint site. So you have to scroll forever, but somewhere in here is that right there. And then here for the document library, this time it's called documents. So weird. And for the file. Okay, now we just talked about, or you just saw in the other one, what we want is the file we just created. But if you choose this, then you're not going to get any dynamic content, right? It's not going to understand the file and it's going to make the flow impossible to read. So when you're writing the flow the first time, you have to hard code the file. So you need this file to already be in the SharePoint document library. If it's not, which it's currently not, then I would go back out here to documents. I'm going to manually upload the file. And so then now that the file is uploaded, now we'll go back over here. We'll browse again. Hopefully the browser is fast enough to find it. There it is. Okay. So we're going to have to put the file in here. When I did a version of this before, people got really confused by this, but put a version of the file in for now. We're going to undo it in just a second. Then you can do new step. And then we're going to say Excel again. And this time it is list rows present in a table. Make sure it's Excel business. So same location. There's PowerApps videos, document library, same documents again. File, once again, choose the file. You have to manually choose it for right now. We're going to make that dynamic later. And then for table though, see, this is the beauty of hard coding the file right now. It is finding the table because we need it to know what that is, right? We need it to be able to see that because we want to use the dynamic content. So then the last piece here, new step, we're going to say SharePoint, and then we're going to, what are we going to do? Create item. There it is. Okay, so then this is my PowerApps videos. List name is sales history. And just so we're all on the same page so we can see sales history over here, we'll just do list settings real quick. And you can see, right, title was renamed to customer name. And then I just added order amount, which is currency, order date, which is date and time, and customer email, which is single line of text. Columns don't matter, but I want to show you the columns I was using. Okay, so then look, now it shows those here, and you can just map. So I know from Excel, the name goes into customer name. Now, when you add the first one, it puts you in a loop. It apply to each here, and that's because it knows that list rows spit out a table. And so since it's in a table, it knows that, you want to do that. So there's 5 rows in there. You want to do this step 5 times, right? But then now you can just go in here, order amount. And so if something doesn't show up, order amount's not. Let's see if order date does. Order date does, so we can choose date. And then customer email does. Great. Sometimes what happens is because order amount's a number in like Excel and PowerApps and Power Automate and SharePoint, they're all confused right now. It's not going to auto suggest order amount over here. Now, if you type in amount though, it absolutely will. So just keep that in mind. Sometimes the columns won't show up. It's not because they're not there. It's because it doesn't think the right type. It doesn't think it's the right type, so it's not going to auto suggest it. But there you go. This simple flow will then create the items. Okay, now that you've done all of this, right, you've got all the pieces here, then what I want you to do is now we can go back and make it dynamic. But we had to finish this because we needed these columns, this dynamic content to show up. This dynamic content wouldn't show up if we didn't do it exactly the way we just did here. So now you go back to get tables, you can delete this, and you're going to choose ID, not item ID, ID. Let's pull that right there. List rows present in a table. Same thing. Delete this. What do we want? We want not from get tables. We want from here, from create file. We want the ID again. The table turns to gibberish. Okay. So what you need to do now is you're going to say X and you're going to say enter custom value. And what you want is you're going to say, I want the first table's name from here. Now, if you just put name in here, let's just do it. So from get tables, put name. that will put you in an apply to each. We're not supporting an apply to each. We don't want multiple tables. Technically this would work, but it feels yucky to me. So I'm going to delete this out. I'm going to drag him out of there and delete that apply to each. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to say, I want to write an expression. We're going to do the first function that says, give me the first record or the first row from a table, which is what get tables was spitting out, right? So first one of those, dynamic content. So this is the value that came out of there. Then you're going to go all the way to the end. After the close parenthesis, you're going to do a question mark. You're going to do a square brackets. You're going to do single quotes. And then you're going to do name in capital N. All right. We'll say Control A, Control C. We'll say OK. And I'm just going to paste this right here under add a note, so it's easy to see. But so that stops you from having that apply to each loop that you didn't want anyway. That just let us drill straight into that name. But now that we've done that and that, this advanced option, make sure that you set this to ISO 8601. I almost forgot. Glad I didn't. There you go. And then now down here under create item, these all still work. So, but if we tried to add ones, this is still compose in here. If we do a compose and we were to say, hey, in the compose, I want to see something from the get tables. And so look, from get tables, it doesn't know all of the, list rows, not get tables, from the list rows. Where'd you go, list rows? So right here from list rows, it doesn't know the names of your columns. And the reason is because we now made the table name dynamic and the file name dynamic, so it doesn't know what's inside of them. So that's why we had to put the file there manually before we could do this. But there you go. We'll delete this compose out. We didn't really need it. It was just a demo. That would let you do all the things that we want to do. If you really wanted, then remember I showed, let's just go here, open link in new tab. And let's edit this one we just did a minute ago. So we've built all the hard part, and then we use that delete file from the clever workaround. And so I'm just going to leave this here. It's to send an HTTP request, but I'm not going to get into the mechanics. Their blog post does a great job of explaining it, and I just use their blog post, so you should too if you want to add this, but that's what the steps look like. Okay, so there you go. That would get you everything you hoped and dreamed for. That gets us the same exact flow. We did the respond to PowerApps or flow, once again, because we wanted to be able to wait until it got finished. Just make sure if you're going to do that, if you have a really large file and it's going to take more than 90 seconds, you could have errors there. As long as you have small files, it would not be a problem whatsoever. And that does it, right? What do you think? You like that? It's a common or more common scenario than I think it is. So if you have any questions, any comments, any ideas how I could do this better, different, or other video ideas, leave them below. I always read all the comments and I respond to half-ish these days. There's a lot I get, so I try to respond as many as I can. But yeah, I think with that, I'm going to say thanks and have a great day. Hey, me again. Before you go, click on the subscribe button, right? Join the list of 100,000 plus people that have subscribed already. Or if you need any help, right? Check us out at PowerApps 911. We do big projects, little projects. We do training. We do everything, and we can help you. Or if you want to see more videos, you probably do, then just click on the playlist above. Cool? Thanks, and have a great day.